advantage of every minute that we have. This will go from 6:30 to 8 o'clock tonight. And I am joined tonight by Dr. Graham, the high school principal. We hope to be able to answer many of your questions and to hopefully present some materials that will help you understand our block schedule before all the questions have to get posted. The way in which you will get your questions answered tonight is if you post the questions that you have in the chat box. So feel free to do that at any point in time, and Dr. Graham and I will work just as quickly as we can to get through as many questions as we can. Those questions that we're not able to get to tonight, we will then put that in a frequently asked question document that we hope to release next week. We want to get to the questions that are most pertinent tonight to help you make an informed decision regarding what educational plan will work best for your students. I did welcome all the parents, I believe, to this town hall meeting, but we may have some high school students joining us as well. So high school students, if you've taken advantage to join in this town hall meeting, welcome. And we are just excited to get you back to Jenison High School as fast as we can. Please keep in mind, parents, that things are changing rapidly. The questions that are asked tonight and the answers we give you could very well change by Monday. That's been my life the entire summer. I, for example, was on a meeting with the Ottawa County Department of Public Health on Monday, and by Wednesday, when I was back on with them, some significant changes were already made. So that's what we're up against. We want to provide you with the most up-to-date information and that information that will, again, help you make an informed decision. And we will try to get to you any significant changes you need to be aware of. So with that, we're going to start tonight by having Dr. Graham go through the block schedule and try to explain that in a way that is more understandable than what we've already put out, because I know there's still lots of questions about that. I will moderate tonight and take the questions. I will answer some of those questions and I'll toss them to Dr. Graham. We'll kind of go back and forth in this format. Hopefully it'll be beneficial to you. It is being recorded, so if any of the parents aren't able to be on tonight and you know that they weren't able to, they could always go back and look at the recording, or if you want to go back and get a clarification on something you don't remember, a question and answer, you can feel free to go back to that recording later as well. Thank you, Mr. DeVries, our District Technology Director, for helping us to make this town hall work tonight. Dr. Graham.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Timberink. I would just like to welcome everybody to the meeting tonight too. And obviously this year's different than years past, but we still are excited to get our students back. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hopefully this technology is working tonight.
Can you hear me?
All right, while we try to get Dr. Graham's volume working, let me talk about a couple district things, and we'll get his volume working here. I know the issue of face masks is very controversial. There are people on both sides of this issue. I know I've been presented with much scientific medical research on the wearing of masks or the effects of students wearing masks all day in a negative way. And we are obligated as agents of the state of Michigan. The governor is our ultimate boss, and the state of Michigan funds our schools. And so we are obligated to follow the governor's My Safe Return to School roadmap. And that is what we're doing in regard to face masks. So 6th through 12th grade students are required to wear face masks indoors. There is some concern, certainly, whether or not there's going to be breaks for students wearing their masks. I mean, we were just in an all-day administrative staff meeting from 8:30 this morning till 4:30 this afternoon, and we wore masks most of the day. And I can tell you, it's something to get used to. So our students will be able to, in moving from class to class, be able to use the outside to get to classes, and that's when they'll be able to take their masks off. Or at lunch, while they're eating lunch, they'll be able to take their masks off as well. Hopefully we can get masks that are very comfortable for the students, find one that's comfortable. We're providing every student with what we think is a very comfortable district mask with our logo on it. So I see Dr. Graham still trying to get his volume up there. So I think what I will do is maybe just start to get to your questions while he is trying to get that technology working. So the first question, my daughter is entering 9th grade and is in band. If we choose the fully online version, how does this affect her involvement with band? The one exception that we are making is marching band, because marching band is a continuation of their summer work band camp that's currently going on. And so students that are either in the extended traditional model or the fully online can continue to participate in marching band. In regard to the other band, orchestra, or choir courses, we're not going to have students coming into those during the school year because we're trying to mitigate the exposure of our students and provide as safe of environments that we can. Will they be able to eat lunch with friends, or are they assigned to a room? They will be able to eat lunch with their friends. They can certainly get hot lunch, and they will go through the hot lunch line, get their food, and move to, I think we're gonna have 5 or 6 designated areas where they will be allowed to go and enjoy a lunch with their friends. We're also going to be giving our juniors the same privileges we give our seniors, which is they can go out for lunch, go home for lunch, which will help us in terms of not having to find even more areas to social distance and have our students eating lunch. So I hope that's good news for the juniors coming into this year. That's not going to be a precedent. So the sophomores, that probably is not going to be the case for you, but because of the COVID-19 this year, we are putting that in place. Will they have breaks from wearing the mask at all? What do they need? A couple of minutes? That's what we're certainly going to provide in terms of once they go outside, they can take their masks off and they can use the outside pathways to get to classes and also during the lunch periods. Dr. Graham, is your volume working yet? Trying to get him unmuted. Mr. DeVries, is that something you can help him with? All right. Our other town hall meetings have been going really, really well, and tonight we're struggling with that. All right, I'm going to keep going here.
Can you
How
get me
will orchestra work for extended traditional students? Can extended traditional students participate in sports? Extended traditional students can participate in sports. That is something that we're working with the MHSAA on. For orchestra students, our orchestra directors and band directors, actually there's a program that I just paid for them to utilize with the students at home in a virtual format that's supposed to help them continue to develop their skills. And so can't remember the name of it, I probably should. They came to me, I said, I'll find a way to pay for it so that we can continue to service those students who are in extended traditional model at home and continue developing their skills on their instruments. What are the COVID symptoms that would warrant a phone call to the parent? I'll address this. It looks like Dr. Graham, are you up now?
Can you hear me? You can't hear me?
Not yet. Oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on there. All right, so what are the symptoms, the COVID symptoms that would warrant a phone call to the parents? Please understand, this is not something we're doing on our own. This is something that we are looking at with the Ottawa County Health Department, because we cannot service the needs of our constituents because we're not medical experts. So we have to rely on the Ottawa County Department of Public Health to help us make decisions as it comes to these COVID-19 issues. We have a direct liaison with the Ottawa County Department of Public Health. I have a direct line to Dr. Heidel, who is in charge of this department. So anytime we have students with any symptoms that would appear to be COVID-19 symptoms, we are to call our liaison and in talking through with them, these symptoms determine next steps. And we have a flow chart in terms of next steps. The symptoms that we're being told at this time, it's continuing to be revised, but this is what we got as of yesterday, and I'm being told this is being revised, so I'll just share these with you. Temperature of 100.4, or signs of fever, chills, sweating, a sore throat, new uncontrolled cough that causes difficulty breathing, diarrhea, vomiting, or abdominal pain, new onset of severe headache. I think a key there is new. So if we have seasonal allergies, that brings about a sore throat because of the postnasal drip, et cetera, into the throat, that's not new. That's just a continuation, unfortunately, of those that suffer with seasonal allergies. Or if you have issues with the gastrointestinal and you're having regularly diarrhea or abdominal pain, that's not new. And so those are situations that we have to look for. And as we get into influenza season, it's going to be really difficult to distinguish. We're going to err on the side of caution. And certainly parents will be the first one to call. We have to ask parents in this new environment in which we find ourselves, the My Safe Return to School Roadmap provided by our governor asks the parents to screen our students when they're coming into school. So that means taking their temperature in the morning and making sure that they're ready to go. This is not the time, as we were kind of talking about in our administrative team meeting, to say, hey, you can gut this out, you need to go to school, et cetera, because when our students aren't feeling well or if they have a fever, they should be kept home. We do have this extended traditional model where they're not going to lose classroom instruction by staying home. So we're going to ask parents to please err on the side of caution and not send students to school if they're having an allergy attack all day. That's going to be really difficult wearing a mask anyway, or if they're not feeling well. And so that will help us to mitigate, again, any kind of exposure, whether it be the influenza or COVID-19. The other thing is if we do have students that get ill at school, we're going to need those students picked up within an hour's time. We cannot continue to monitor a student in a limited sick room for 3 hours until parents can possibly get them picked up. So we're going to ask parents, please find alternative people that can get your children home, or if they drive and you give them permission to drive home, that would be okay with us. We're not going to send a child home, though, that is not capable of driving home if they're that sick. But we're going to need them picked up quickly to get them out of the office environment, just so we're not spreading any other viruses around the building or to our office staff. Dr. Graham, are you up yet?
Parents can't hear me.
All right, we're on.
Okay, there we go. Well, I apologize for the technical difficulties there. I'll just echo some of what Mr. Tembrink said. Obviously, this year is much different than any other with our start, but I am thrilled to engage our students this year. I've got 2 students that live in my house that'll be in Jenison High School this year, and probably more than any year before. They are missing their friends, they're missing education, and I know that several students are in the same boat that I've interacted with over the summer. So I'm going to share with you just an outline of what our plan looks like. I know you got this in the mail, but I want to kind of walk you through that and then maybe answer any questions that come up based on the schedule that you see. So I'm going to show this. Mr. DeVries is going to let me share my screen. Okay. So this is what you should have received in communication from Mr. Tembrink. But first and foremost, the reason why we're going to a block schedule is to reduce the movement in our building and reduce the interaction in large groups. So we've really been cognizant of looking at the building to say, where are those times where there's a lot of congestion and there's lots of people in smaller spaces. So That really made us, when we were evaluating this summer, looking at all of the schedules that were available to us, say this is the one that makes the most sense. This also will mirror if we have to go to any type of remote learning full-time with all of our kids. We feel that this would be a manageable transition to that type of an environment. So if you look at my screen, I'm going to move the cursor around. If you have a 0-hour student, and this is about 128 students at Jenison High School, they will continue to come from 7 to 7:55. And that'll be a class that'll meet every day. Again, this is a situation where we've got very few students that do this. So the volume of students that are in and out of our building during 0 hour is very minimal. And also those classes that the students are going to are located in all over the building. They're not congregated in one spot. So if you continue to look down, you'll see that we have a block day on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Monday will be hours 1, 3, and 5. On Tuesday, hours 2, 4, and 6. On Wednesday, we come back to 1, 3, 5. On Thursday, 2, 4, and 6. So each of those periods of time will be 2 hours. So that's a change for our students and our staff. Instead of having a 60-minute schedule per day, they're going to be in that class for 2 hours. So really what's going to happen during that time is they're going to be covering 2 days of content each time they have a touch point with their teacher. So from 8 to 10, obviously they'd be in first hour, and then they'll transition to their third hour. When you look at a block schedule like this, you either have a brunch or you have a later lunch. And so we've decided to go with the later lunch period. Like Mr. Tembrink said, we'll have 3 different lunches like we typically do. But unlike normal, we'll have between 5 and 6 different locations that our students will be eating in, again, to minimize the crowds. So on Tuesday, you'll go to the hours 2, 4, 6, the even numbers, and then the same on Wednesday and Thursday. So during those days, they'll essentially meet with each class 2 times, but there'll be 4 days of content that'll be in there. I think the biggest question that I've had since this went out is, talk to me about Fridays, okay? Because Fridays is the day that's a little bit different on that schedule. 0 hour will continue to meet. Friday is a day that we are going to allow students to be in the building, but they don't have to be in the building. So if there's students on tonight, and I've said this to my own students in my house, Friday is still a work day. So it's not, we're going to a 4-day week and you get Fridays off. What Friday will be is teachers will be working on assignments, providing assignments to students, and you may choose to come into the building. You may choose to do that from home. I'll give you an example of when a teacher may request that you're coming in is if you're struggling in a class. My sophomore to be junior daughter last year had AP chemistry, which is a pretty difficult class here at Jenison High School. And she said, yeah, Dad, I probably would have needed to come in on Friday to get a little extra help in that class. So that's what that day is going to be for. If you need some additional support or a teacher wants to work through assignments with you, they can request you to come in. You certainly may come in, but I think it could be a perk for some of our students that are getting their work done, progressing at a good rate. That's a day that you can work from home. Again, it's a day that you're not here. You're more with your family during that day. So we wanted to provide our students with that as well. So that's an overview of what the block schedule will look like for us. Now, I kind of described that traditional environment. I want to describe a little bit about what that extended traditional environment would look like. So the students that are going to choose to work from home but be in Jenison High School classes, you will be opening your computer at these times, okay? And so you'll join your Google Classroom. Our teacher will have their Google Meet on. And so they will project you into the class. Actually, they'll project themselves to your computer. And so you'll be able to listen and hear that, that direct instruction portion of the classroom. So for example, oftentimes in like a US history, a world history, they're going to give kind of that direct instruction at the beginning of the hour, engage students in some dialogue, some conversation, and then break into those different groups, activities, things like that. So the students that are working from home would log in at the beginning of the hour. We would do an attendance check with them. We would allow them to watch the direct instruction, be a part of the class, see the teacher, what's happening in the room. And then they would be able, when the direct instruction is over, log out of the Google Meet, the Google video, and then proceed to the Google Classroom and do the assignments that the teacher has provided for them. So again, they would be on for being ready to go at 8 o'clock for their first hour class on Monday, at 10:05 for their third, and then their fifth hour based on where their lunch is at. So this is something that we feel we wanted to make sure that they had that same instruction that the kids in the classroom were getting, so they're able to see the teacher, they're able to hear the conversation that's had in the class. We think that that will be an environment in which they'll be able to stay engaged in that extended traditional. Again, if you're an extended traditional student, with this opportunity, you will have the ability to transition back into classes. So if Mr. DeVries, our tech director, was in my US history class and he chose to be extended traditional, he would have a spot in that class. And so if we get to November and and everything with this virus is looking really good, his family says, you know what, we're ready for you to go back. That would be a call to me. We would discuss the transition plan and we would get him right back into that class. So that's the nice part about the extended traditional, is you will have a seat in the classroom and be able to transition right back to that class when you're ready. Mr. Timbrink, I don't know if there are any questions that are coming through to you.
There are.
Okay.
My apologies, because I have two laptops going and my volume on one of them was down, evidently. And so Dr. Graham was being able to be heard by all of you, not me. So I couldn't even acknowledge him because I couldn't hear him. And I can't read lips very well from a Zoom. So my apologies to Dr. Graham and all of you, but we're back on target here, and hopefully that explanation answers some of the questions that have been posted thus far. Dr. Graham, can you explain how the extended traditional will work for kids with IEPs?
That's a very good question. What we're going to be doing is taking a look at what are those specific learning needs. This would be a situation where our special education teachers that are doing some team teaching within our core content areas. Oftentimes we've got teaming environments. So our special education teachers, for example, that US history example that I gave you, they may listen, the students may be home listening to the direct instruction, but then they may jump on with that special education instructor for guided support as they work through assignments. We also look at Friday as the day that's going to be a big day with engaging with our study skills teachers and providing additional support in all of the classes. But again, we will continue to have the study skills support that's available to our students throughout their schedule like it normally would. And again, I think we're gonna be looking at this on a case-by-case basis and make sure that we're meeting the needs of the IEP and certainly the student.
All right, another question I've already answered. I'll answer it again. Under the extended traditional plan, can the kids still participate in sports? The answer to that is yes. However, they must be doing their work and must be in good standing. And so they can't have an extended traditional model student that's not doing any work at home and still be expected to be participating in sports. So if you're extended traditional model, you must keep up on your work just like you would any other time in a classroom in order to participate in sports. Dr. Graham, there is two questions in the same question: music courses and AP classes. And I'm imagining that means extended traditional model for music courses and AP classes.
That's a very good question. That's one that's come up to me quite a bit too. The music classes in the extended traditional, you'll be able to participate through the extended traditional with the exception of marching band. We are allowing students that are in the extended traditional setting to continue to come in for that class because that's that extracurricular activity that's also happens to be part of our classroom environment. So for example, like Mr. Tembrink said, if you're in extended learning, you can participate in athletics. If you're extended learning, you can participate in band. And my heart breaks a little bit for our band students right now. But we are looking at all kinds of options of what we can do, whether it be in the fall or the spring. I know Mr. Zamborski is committed to giving you guys the very best experience. He's got band camp going on, in fact, right now. So getting back to the original question, if you go extended traditional, though, you would stay extended traditional. Therefore, you wouldn't come back in, with the exception of band, to the classroom. So if you want to be in that orchestra class, if you want to be in that choir class, you would need to be in the traditional environment for that.
And that answers a question, will students in band have face-to-face class? Yes, you will in marching band.
Correct.
Can you explain the class block schedule, in particular the all-day class online Friday? I hope Dr. Graham explained that well enough for you to understand. It'll be something that you'll continue to experience. But I believe it's the first 3 weeks of school, we only have 4-day weeks. So that Friday won't occur until like the 4th week of school, because the 4 days will be our block schedule days. So even though it's on a Friday, it will still be a block schedule day. The Friday he described is only when we're back to 5 days in a week. Correct, Dr. Graham?
Yeah, and I would just echo one other point, that if you feel your child needs extra support in a class, please send them on Fridays. That we would encourage that. So obviously the teachers are going to be closely monitoring that, our counselors, our administrators, and trying to identify kids that really need to be in a seat that day. But you as a parent certainly understand that as well, or certainly better than us. And so if you feel your child needs to be there, make sure that you're sending them to school on Friday.
Yeah, we're kind of calling it a blended flex day to be able to allow students to learn from home if that's something that they need, and then come to school. Certainly, we're not going to tell any child they can't come. We want them to come if they need to be there, but it'll also give us a chance to really clean our building a little bit more with not as many students in the building on that day. How will labs and science classes work, especially for extended traditional students?
That we are working on right now, and these are great questions. I met with several of our science teachers yesterday, and they are putting not only protocols in place for labs when students are here, but also looking at how we need to develop that lab experience for those students that are home. So there will be, it may not look exactly the same as it does, when you're in the traditional setting, but you'll be getting a lab experience from home that you can complete electronically or over the computer.
On the screening portion, page 11 of the plan, it states a student will be asked their location and contacts over the last 48 hours as a parent present during that questioning. That questioning would only take place if a student happens to become ill at school and we need to contact the Ottawa County Department of Public Health to get direction from them. We do reserve the right to take any student's temperature because that's a signal for us to begin to determine the symptoms and how we begin to treat that. Our athletes, however, are being held to a little higher standard in that before practice every day, and that's already been occurring this summer, they get their temperature taken and then they're asked to answer some of the questions we all have to answer in regard to our COVID exposure. And so that's something that our athletes have already been doing this summer and will continue to do. So hopefully that helps to address it. Certainly if there's a concern about a child that may have COVID-19 symptoms, parents will be involved immediately. Will JIA and extended traditional options include a virtual version of orchestra? I believe we've kind of answered that, along with the fact that we did have purchased a music program that allows you to continue to participate virtually. Dr. Graham, this is a really good question. I'm sure there's some people out there wondering about Tech Center.
Yep, absolutely. Tech Center students, we have about 160 of those in our building. And so when you look at the block schedule, that's a little bit different than the traditional schedule that Tech Center keeps. But we are making it a priority for our kids to still be able to get out to the Tech Center. I know that that's a program that for a lot of students, they're finding their career niche there. So we want to make sure that they can continue to go. They will follow the Tech Center schedule. And so for years now, for the 10 years that I've been here, our students have missed some of their traditional time to get out to Tech Center, and that will continue. Those blocks of time that they're going to miss are a little bit larger this year. So we're working with our staff to make sure that all of those students that are engaged in Tech Center get the materials that they need. Again, a lot of the direct instruction is going to take place at the beginning of those hours. So we feel confident that the kids can still get out to Tech Center, be a part of that, but also being in the traditional setting here.
And Tech Center is only in a traditional model. There is no virtual Tech Center. So if you sign up for Tech Center, you're going to be expected to be there in a face-to-face instruction. If a student chooses to go to JIA, can they still take electives like music? So how does that blended course work with students that have taken JIA courses and still want to take high school courses?
Yeah, we're still working closely with JIA to allow kids to be a split schedule student. I think this year probably more than ever, we won't have as many split schedule students, but we do work very well with the Genesis International Academy and trying to find opportunities for kids to not only be online, but take some courses here in the traditional setting as well.
And this next question really is a great segue and set me up perfectly. So I'm going to take 1 minute to thank all of you parents for getting to the polls or filling out absentee ballots, helping to get the voters to the polls as well. What a tremendous victory it was for Genesis Public Schools to have 65% of over 8,400 ballots cast, over 2,000 more ballots than ever been cast in a just an election in the history of our schools. 65% is a great testimony to the work that's being done here at Genesis Public Schools. So thank you so much. Please know how blessed we feel to have your support, and we will be prove to you that we'll be great stewards with those dollars and get those projects moving just as quickly as we can. We have a meeting already set up on Monday to get things rolling. So with that, the question is, will there be an option to borrow laptops, Chromebooks from the school if we don't have enough devices at home? Working with Mr. DeVries today, we are going to be placing a huge order of Chromebooks. Unfortunately, as you might imagine, the universe is trying to access Chromebooks. So there's a huge back order on Chromebooks, anywhere from 3 months to 5 months. With that being said, we are committed to make sure that every student that's learning from home has their own device. This is not a time where we can ask a family to share one device. We need each child to have their own device. We believe we've got enough devices around the district, especially for the extended traditional right now, for every child to have their own device. We hope that if you have 2 devices at home but need a third one, we'll certainly provide the third one from school. If you have 1 and you need 2, we'll get you 2. If you don't have any and you need 3, we'll get you 3. But we're going to need some support from the home front to say, look, we can provide 2 of our kids with technological devices, but we need 2 more. We'll get those to you. Because if we end up in a situation where the entire district has to go virtual, we're going to have to make sure every child has their own device, which will deplete much of what we have here in our classrooms. And hopefully we'll be able to get the new order that we have back in to restock those classrooms from when students come back. What are we going to, go ahead.
Can I follow up on that last question, Mr. Timberlake?
Yep.
I would also encourage families that if you do have devices for your kids, please go ahead and send them to school with their device. That way, again, it's a lowering the contact points during the day. So if you do have a laptop or a tablet that your student uses, please go ahead and send them with that to school, because that'll be a help for us as well.
So the next question is kind of a catch-22 for us. And what are you going to do about security now that kids are bringing backpacks to class? You know, it's one of those things of what do we have to address first, COVID-19, the spread of COVID-19, potential spread of COVID-19, or maintain a very secure environment. One of the things at the high school that was built as a California model high school back in the day when it was built, which meant the hallways were never designed to move 1,450 kids through like we're currently doing. They were actually built so that kids use the outside to get from one wing to the other. And that's one of the ways in which we're going to allow students to move, because that gives them a chance to get fresh air, get their masks off, but also we're not going to have them congregated so tightly in the hallways as they move. That's a security issue for us. But we have to weigh that versus the potential spread of COVID-19. Same thing with backpacks. If we're having children move that way, they're not going to be able to go to their lockers, and having them go to their lockers between every hour is a problem. And so we have to provide them a means by which to carry their books. I know back in my day, we carried all of our books in our arms. I don't know why, but maybe we didn't have backpacks back then. But they do have backpacks now. We have to allow them to carry their backpacks. So we're going to trust our students to do the right things and have the right things in their backpack, but it's definitely needed for how we have to move our students around the building in order to mitigate any possible spread of COVID-19. The 0 hour in the traditional model or virtual, what does that look like, Dr. Graham?
0 hour in a traditional model will be in person. So the students will be expected to be here at 7 a.m. for the start of their class.
On Friday, what would happen if half of the teachers want the students at school and the other half wants to go virtual? That's the beauty of that Friday, is that we call it the blended and the flex. So we can have as many students there on, if we wanted all the students there on Friday, they could be there. If half the teachers say, hey, we want you to do these assignments from home virtually, they can do that as well. So that's not going to stand in our way. It gives it plenty of flexibility how the high school wants to function. Dr. Graham?
Yeah, that question came to me earlier this week as well. And so one of the questions that was brought to me is, what if only one teacher needs to see my son or daughter that day? They certainly can come for the whole day. But if they do want to come in for that 1 hour, be a part of that class, then they could go home. Again, they would, if they don't drive, they would need transportation home. We don't want to send kids home walking. So it would be one of those things that if your son or daughter had to come to 5th hour, you could drop them off, pick them up, and they wouldn't have to be in the building for the full day.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying that. So that is something we'll have to work on for sure, because if it's just 1 hour and it's a 3rd hour class and the only way they can get there if they're a freshman is getting dropped off in the morning and coming home later in the afternoon, those are things we've got to work with our teachers on. Which format options will have AP classes available?
All options, actually. So obviously our traditional model will have the AP. If you're extended traditional, you'll have the option to take our AP classes. I would say if you're going to take the extended traditional, I anticipate that being a little more work, just because the dialogue that happens in class and the traditional class would probably be more rich being here in the building, but you can certainly do that through the other option as well. And then our Jenison International Academy all online has AP classes. Frozen. Okay, Tom's frozen, so we're gonna wait and see if he unfreezes. I'll continue. I appreciate somebody noting that to me. Will there be orientation before school starts? Yes, there will be. You'll be receiving information at the end of the week on that, but our schedule will be Our students will be coming to school on Friday. Our seniors, we always do seniors first because they have been here the longest, and we want to make sure that we take care of those schedules first. So our senior orientation days will be, the orientation day will be the 14th. Our sophomores will be the 17th. I'm sorry, our juniors will be the 17th, our sophomores will be the 18th, and then the 19th will be our freshmen. And so for our upperclassmen, our 12th graders through our 10th graders, we will have stations that they'll come and pick up their materials in the high school parking lot. So for example, they'll get their schedules, they will have their photo IDs taken, they'll be able to get their parking permits, and those will be the main things that they'll get that day. We are going to share some videos with them that we're going to kind of go over a lot of the nuts and bolts of the school year, the plans as far as how we're going to move about the building. The freshmen, we are looking to have an opportunity for them to come into the building. Certainly when you transition to a new school, we want to make sure that they know where they're going, they know where their locker's at, and they're very comfortable. So we've got a system that we're working on minimizing the number of kids that come in and having a specific pattern in which our freshmen will be in the building and getting acclimated to where they're going to be on that first day of school. Mr. Tembrink, we're on question 24, I believe.
Perfect.
So how will students get their photos and locker assignments? That will happen at our orientation days. And so they'll get that printed on site, and they'll get their schedule and their locker assignments.
And same teacher online as in person?
Yes. For the traditional and traditional extended, it will be the same teacher. I believe at the high school level this year. We're still waiting to see what those numbers are going to show us. So there may be some adjustment to that, but our expectation right now is the person that's printed on your schedule, whether you're extended, traditional, or traditional, will be the instructor that you have for that course.
And I think somebody's asking the question, what's the purpose of students being encouraged to bring their own device to class?
My goal is eventually, and Mr. Tembrink's heard me say this, and I know our goal is eventually to be one-to-one. So for me, having their own device, they're going to be able to carry that device with them. And that will allow us to get other devices in the hands of students that don't have a device with them. Again, it'll be something that they won't have to wipe down between every hour. If we're sharing devices, we're going to be wiping all of that equipment down between use. So if your student does have one, I think that would just create a little bit more ease for your child.
All right. So somebody's asking if they have a senior, is GIA a viable option to receive a JHS diploma at the end of the school year?
Is that question for me?
That's your question.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I think we're in unusual times right now. Typically, our stance on that had been if you finished your requirements through Jenison High School, you would be a Jenison High School graduate. If you finished your requirements through our International Academy, you would be an International Academy graduate. I think in the situation we find ourselves right now, we would be willing to sit down and talk with families on which they would prefer. And so if you have that question, please email me personally, and I can talk that through with Mrs. Redmer, our director at Jenison International Academy.
And how are you going to ensure mask compliance in your hallways?
That's a standard that we're going to set day one, that you need to have mask on. And so we are going to say that's an expectation. That's not something that is optional. So we're going to be real clear with our students. We've been real clear with our staff what the expectation is, and those are the things that we have to do. And I think Mr. Tembrink talked about this. We've got a lot of things that are given to us to say these things must happen, and for us to have school and have the ability to get our kids into school and in front of their teachers, we need to have those masks on. So there's certainly going to be a presence in the hallway of teachers, of administrators, of counselors, and we're hoping to set that standard right away. And any help that you can give from home. I know masks aren't fun, especially when it's hot outside, but if you can be an encouragement to your child, that will help us as you partner with us to keep our doors open.
So let me answer this question from maybe a district perspective. What will the offerings be for Spanish immersion students? Spanish immersion is a very difficult program for us to try to replicate in a virtual setting. We have limited Spanish immersion teachers. So at an elementary level, we can't expect our Spanish immersion teachers to be teaching 25 traditional students in their classroom and then do a virtual teaching session with students, 5 students that are in the extended traditional model. Likewise, at the high school, we have limited teachers and the ability to replicate what you would get in a Spanish immersion classroom at either junior high or high school. So that one is very difficult for us to try to replicate in any way through an extended traditional model. If you want a full Spanish immersion experience, you really need to choose the traditional model. We'll do the best we can, but most of what your children will be getting, they will be getting in English with some support in Spanish versus what they would get in a 100% Spanish immersion classroom at the high school. Dr. Rand, is that correct?
Correct. We do anticipate those teachers that are teaching Spanish immersion to have the opportunity to jump into their classroom if they're remote. But I think that language piece is so huge to be in front and in person. All of the research out there just tells us how important it is to be face to face with language acquisition.
This next question takes me back to my own high school days, but does the high school offer co-op for seniors such that they go a half day to school then leave for their job?
We do offer work-based learning. And so what that is, in Mr. Tembrink's day, that was probably a little bit more loosely done. The state of Michigan now does require that experience is tied to a business course. So we do have a school to career coordinator. Her name is Kelly Kirkland. And so if you are interested in that, we do have seniors that spend part of their day at Jenison High School, part of their day in a work environment, but they are required to have a business course that ties in to what they're doing. I would also add that the jobs that students take need to somehow tie back to the career that they're going to pursue. And so we know that that's sometimes a challenge at the high school level, but if that interests you, please go to our website. Kelly Kirkland is our director of the school-based learning and or work-based learning, and she'll be able to help you.
Will temperature checks be administered before students enter the building? No, we're not going to be doing those temperature checks. If you can imagine trying to do 1,450 temperature checks every morning. Again, parents are being asked through the governor's My Safe School Roadmap to make sure you screen your children. However, if we determine that a child should be screened, we will be doing that. The high school, I believe, we're going to have about 15 to 20 infrared thermometers that will be throughout the wings in the high school. And so if we see a student that needs a temperature check, we'll do that. And we'll certainly be doing it in the high school office if a child comes down and says they're not feeling well. So please be diligent and vigilant at home and checking your children's temperature should they indicate they're not feeling well. What's the contingency plan for if or when there is an outbreak of COVID-19? That is a very, very complex question because our contingency plan is difficult because it varies from situation to situation. The one thing I can tell you is there needs to be black and white answers in a very gray world right now. And so what we do is we immediately contact the Ottawa County Department of Public Health to our liaison there and say, this is our situation. We have a student that is symptomatic of potential COVID-19. We monitor that student. If a student is diagnosed with COVID-19, if it be at Jenison High School, what will be immediately happening is Ottawa County Health Department will launch they will trace where that child's been, and they will determine, and keep these two words in mind, it's duration and distance. How long was somebody in somebody's space within a 6-foot space? And that will help to determine who's going to need to be quarantined. So very well may be that several classrooms are going to be asked to be quarantined for 14 days because a student was diagnosed with COVID-19 and had contact, close contact with these number of students. If that should happen, and we have 2 or 3 classrooms or a whole wing of the high school that is asked to self-quarantine, you get immediately into the extended traditional model, and you'll receive your education that way, so nobody's missing out. So we have to rely on the Ottawa County officials. They're the medical experts to help guide us in every situation that we're going to encounter. We are going to err on the side of caution, however, in dealing with these situations. So it's not a black and white situation where I can say, if this, then this. Everything is going to be handled immediately as the different circumstances require us to respond. And certainly we will notify parents as best we can, but we are also restricted by HIPAA violations. And so we will we'll do our best to keep parents notified what was going on in terms of anybody is identified with COVID-19 in our buildings. That will also include teachers. Teachers in those classrooms could be quarantined as well. So did he say marching band only? If we choose JIA, if we have a child in marching band and orchestra, can he do both at the high school, Dr. Graham?
Yes, you can do both. So if you're learning online through JIA and you want to come in for those 2 courses, yes, you may do that.
And what do kids who took band as an elective if they aren't having band in class? So marching band is going to continue just like you would right up through the end of October, begin November, until that band flip takes place. So we're going to try to keep maintaining marching band outside as long as we can. If marching band gets moved inside and there's some restrictions there, Mr. Zimborski's already working on some very creative options for students within our band classes that will continue to develop your musical skills. And so you'll be maintained in that marching band classroom. Will bus routes be altered to limit students on the bus? More routes, less students? No, we're not going to alter bus runs, nor are we going to limit students on the bus. If we follow the social distancing guidelines of 6 foot, we would only be able to transport approximately 12 students per bus, which will ultimately mean we would have to say there's no bus transportation this year for Jenison Public School students. So what we're choosing to do instead is to say we are going to have a sanitation. It's a mist that will be on our buses. The kids will immediately put their hands in the mist. If there's anybody that appears to maybe not be feeling well, we'll have thermometers on the buses. Students will sit assigned seats by families. And so we're not going to have where a senior gets to go to the back of the bus and the freshman sits in the front. Families will sit together in assigned seats. At the end of each route, we have cleaning machines, and every bus will be thoroughly cleaned before we run our next route. We think that's the best we can do in providing a safe environment, but that's the only way that we can provide the transportation our families need to get students to and from school. What will happen to the students when they're supposed to do tech center? What will transportation be for tech center, Dr. Graham?
Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, we will have tech center. We have 2 options for transportation for our kids to tech center. We do have an option that they can drive themselves out there. That can be revoked if the weather's poor because we want to make sure that our kids are safe. So they can either drive themselves or they can ride the bus that'll transport them out there. One thing I would ask our parents though is same thing for our kids that are going to be leaving campus during lunch, that it's 1 student in a car, with the exception of if you have a sibling. So if we certainly had brother and sister that were heading out to tech center, they could drive together. But what we're trying to avoid is, large groups of kids that want to pile in a car and ride out there together. So if you do have a student that's headed to tech, please let them know if they're going to drive, that we'd expect them to drive by themselves.
This one we've already answered. If my daughter chooses traditional school and has to be quarantined, it's not sick, will she be able to switch to extended traditional during the quarantine? Absolutely. That's what we're going to ask our students to do. If they're out for any period of time, even if they don't have COVID, let's see that they have influenza and they're out for 4 days, perfect opportunity to jump on extended traditional. The next question asks, how many times can you switch between the two programs? You're only going to be able to switch between, if you choose to go traditional and want to go to extended traditional, you can do that once, or vice versa. If you choose to go extended traditional and need to switch back into traditional, you can do that one time, or if there's extenuating circumstances, you can meet with Dr. Graham and he can prove an additional switch if necessary. If you're in the traditional and get sick or you're quarantined and you go to the extended traditional, that doesn't count. That's just we're going to say that's a freebie, but that's what you access. You're still a part of traditional, but you're accessing extended traditional by no fault of your own. And you're just utilizing that as an opportunity to continue your learning. You haven't switched into the extended traditional. You're just accessing that. I hope that clarifies it. The Fridays we all also answered. Any 4-day weeks, the Friday doesn't exist. So 4-day weeks will just be blocked. The 4 days of block scheduling. Fridays only occur on a 5-day week. When do we expect to have additional guidance from MHSAA on whether or not fall sports will even be permitted? And I know Dr. Graham has this answer, so I'm waiting to hear.
That's a good one. Boy, I think we've all got that question. And so I probably asked it 100 times. Mr. Tembrink's sick of hearing it. I know Mr. Ritzma is sick of me asking. But I think the MHSAA is trying to do everything that they can to provide our kids with these opportunities. And so ultimately, the metrics of what's happening in the state and our health departments are probably going to weigh in and assist the MHSAA in making that decision.
Yeah, I know they're trying to do everything they possibly can to keep those those sports happening, and you should see the guidance they've given us if it's going to happen. It's pretty extensive, and boy, if we can make it happen, we're going to make it happen for our students. This question we've already answered as well. If you're in JIA and JHS classes, do you still have access to the blend? Yes, you do. How are kids going to be protected in the hallway, Dr. Graham?
Yeah, I'm gonna back up because there's the second part of that question on the blended.
Yes.
They're taking a JIA class and they choose a traditional mode. So let's say the kid comes to school, they're here, but they've got a JIA class. They'll be doing that in the triple conference room. So we've got a location within our media center that the students will work on their online classes. How are kids going to be protected in the hallway? We do have a movement pattern that we're going to share with all of you probably the beginning of next week. Certainly share it with our kids during orientation. But essentially, we're going to have half of our students that'll be utilizing outside movement and half of our students that'll be utilizing an inside flow. And so we're hoping to reduce the volume in our hallways in half by utilizing those movement patterns in the building.
How will a student know if they are to attend the school building on a Friday? That again will be done by teacher, and teachers will determine with students whether they need to be there on a Friday. They'll have plenty of advance notice, but please keep in mind, these Fridays are not days off. These Fridays are you going to be at school working face-to-face with a teacher or working virtually at home on assignments that you're given to complete? So it's not just a freebie where school becomes a 4-day work week. It's a 5-day work week. One is just being allowed to be done at home if that helps a student's learning or is better in the family environment. What will protocol be for a student who has a family member at home who has symptoms, even if the student is not showing symptoms themselves? Again, that is something we have to rely on families. If somebody in your family is demonstrating symptoms, we would ask that you keep your child home until you're sure that those symptoms are not COVID COVID-19 related. If we, for example, have a student who is exposed to someone that had COVID-19 at an elementary building and they have a sibling at the junior high and high school, there's a strong possibility that the Ottawa County Health Department would say that the junior high and high school sibling, because they're in the same home, may need to be quarantined as well as the elementary student who is exposed to someone who might have had COVID-19. So as I said, it gets very complex. Every situation will be different. If there's a family member at home not having symptoms of COVID-19, we'd ask that, use good judgment, keep them home for the day until you're sure that it's not related to COVID-19. It's the only way we can help to stop the spread of that virus. Is there a plan in place to check the backpacks since they are not allowed in the classroom? Dr. Graham?
Yep. No, I think we would probably do some random checks, but we will not have every backpack checked when they walk in the building. I think we go back to what Mr. Tenbrink said earlier, reducing that movement in the building is one of our key focus areas in helping control the virus here. So we certainly will do some random backpack checks, but those would not be all screened when they do come into the building.
And in regard to, there's a concern about children missing too much school and have had to have doctored notes in the past. It's a different environment. It's a different day. That is not going to require doctor's notes. You're not going to, have letters being sent home because your child is at the 10th day of absence. But we would ask that your children make a good effort to complete the work if you're in an extended traditional model, or even if they're in the traditional model, because it's for their benefit. We don't want them falling behind. We want to make sure that they're working and staying up with their work. And if they miss 3 weeks of school because they are just doing the work, well, it's tough to get out of that hole. So don't dig the hole and think I'll keep putting it off. Stay up with it. Now, if the student's sick for an entire week, well, it's tough to work if you're really sick. So we understand that, but do the best we can to stay up with the work, whether it be virtually or traditionally.
And I would just add, make sure that you're reaching out to the teachers. If your child is homesick, we know we're going to have kids that are going to get, the common colds and flus and everything else here. So communication is always key. Reaching out, let them know this is the situation. I know our staff will be on top of that and help assist the student as needed as well.
So when students, this next question is pretty long, so I'll just say, if students are in the traditional model, we will provide them the technology they need in the classrooms where they're using technology. So no concerns there. If a student is in the extended traditional, we want to make sure that every student has a personal device that they can use. So if it's a family of 3, you need 3 devices. If you can provide one, the district will provide the other 2. If we have to go to an entire virtual model of instruction for the entire district, we're going to diligently work to make sure every student has their own device. And because our community supported our bond proposal, we're able to put in a huge order for new Chromebooks that hopefully we'll be able to get. They're back ordered about 3 to 5 months right now, but our hope is we'll get them sooner, and that's going to be placed pretty quickly. So thank you for your support of the bond issue, but we will take care of your students' needs in regard to technology. Do students need to come to 0 hour on Friday mornings, or if it's online, is attendance taken on Fridays if they are at home?
We would encourage them to come just because that class is meeting, 1 hour per day rather than the block schedule. So I would say we would encourage them to come on Friday mornings. Is attendance taken on Friday from home? One of the things that we're going to be using as an attendance check is that students are turning in their work that day. And so that'll be kind of our measure that they were engaged in the learning that was expected of them, is that they will be submitting assignments and work, and that all will be time stamped and dated. So we'll have verification that the student was engaged in their learning on Fridays.
Do students choose which lunch location they go to, or you're going to have assignment?
That will be assigned. So we will break that up just like we normally do with A, B, and C lunch. We'll assign teachers to different locations. And so if you're in For example, Mrs. Wershinsky's fifth hour Spanish class, you'll be assigned a certain location. If you're in whatever teacher you may have, it'll all go on your teacher's classroom. So you'll be with kids that are in your class.
How will there be just one class, or will it be multiple classes where kids will be able to have friends from another classroom, for example, that they can eat lunch with versus if they don't have very many friends in that one class?
Yeah, we're still looking at the numbers. You know, we're going to have some indoor spaces while the weather's nice. We'll have some tents that are outside so kids will be able to get outside and eat. We'll be able to probably bring a few more kids together in those outdoor locations. But when we're in, we've got some number requirements that we need to stay within. So we'll probably be able to have a couple of classes that will be eating together, but it won't be crowds of probably more than 50, 60 kids in one location.
How will science labs or special classes, music classes, art, shop classes look with the extended traditional or even in person?
Yeah, I think they're all going to look a little different for sure. A lot of safety protocols that'll be in place. You know, the first thing that I would see when we're in labs, we're going to be trying to use only equipment for only one student. If we're in a shop class, certainly students will be putting gloves on, wearing protective glasses in the labs for science, wearing protective glasses in the shop class as well. Wiping down, a lot of this is going to be our procedural changes where we'll be wiping down equipment much more often than we ever did before. And so those are just some of the basic things that you're going to see as differences.
I think this question keeps being asked, so I think there's a lot of people out there going, really? I mean, like, kids really don't have to come on a Friday if they don't want to, or they have to if a teacher tells them to. This question is asking if they only need help in one or two classes, can they come on Friday? Only for those classes, do the rest at home. Absolutely. That's what this is all about. It's that flexible learning plan that works best for you on that Friday. So I know it's like, this just doesn't seem real, but we're gonna try to make it work, and I think it will be really advantageous for everyone. Will students be able to see the whiteboard through the extended learning model?
Yes. So that we're working on all of the technology behind that right now. That our classrooms are equipped with computers with cameras and also document cameras. So if I were teaching my class, you would see my board right here. So you would be able to see the teacher explaining the concepts that they're teaching, and they'll have that direct observation into the classroom. We are going to ask that our teachers are focusing only on the board, only at the front of the classroom. So the teacher or the students that are learning from home won't see any of the other students during that time that they're watching that direct instruction.
For Friday, if the kids choose to work from home, do they still have to log in for classes during those times like a regular day, only from the dining room table? Or is it completely work on your own time?
I would say yes. There'll probably be some combination. I think the majority of the work will be working independently, but we may have some sessions where a teacher would say, I want to get this small group together and go over this geometry concept or a different concept for whatever class and spend some direct instruction time with kids.
So if I'm a family and my family chooses to do the traditional model, and I'm 2 weeks into this traditional model and things change and I want to move from traditional to extended, what steps do I need to take? What does that look like?
Yep, that would be an email to me or one of my assistant principals, and we would sit down with you, talk about, make sure that we are really clear on what needs to happen, kind of setting those expectations. One of the big questions that I think every family needs to ask is, when students are home, do they have somebody that's there to support them? Being the father of 2 high school students, that's something that's really important. And so would encourage you, you can certainly move to that extended traditional, but to really think that through, like, how are you going to help engage your child in the learning from home when they don't have that instructor that's there every day working with them?
And we have some parents that are wondering about their freshman students, or you may have freshman students on here. that are wondering how in the world are they going to get their schedules and their orientation and check their locker combinations like they always been able to do in the past.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about that when you froze up, Mr. Tembrink, but our freshmen, your orientation day will be the 19th of August. And so similar to the upperclassmen, we're going to have a couple of locations outside. One of those will be where you're going to pick up your schedule and your locker combination. The other one will be your ID photo that will be taken. And it's really important that you get both of those items. For our freshmen, we are going to have you come into the building. And so that'll be done in an orderly way, but you'll be able to get into the building, look at your schedule, see where those classes are, go find your locker. We want to make sure that you're comfortable. I always have a special place in my heart for the freshmen because I spent 11 years at the junior high. And I remember when I came to high school, it seems like a big place here. And so know that we want to make sure that you know where you're going. You know your locker combination, you've practiced it. And so we will take time to walk you through the building. That'll be done in small groups. We're going to have some upperclassmen that will be here kind of pointing you in the directions of where different things are at. So we will take the time on August 19th to do that.
And just to clarify, those 11 years were as an administrator, and it didn't take him 11 years to get through junior high school.
Thanks for the clarification, Mr. Timber.
Are face shields acceptable or are masks required? Up until last Wednesday, face shields were acceptable for face coverings. In the governor's roadmap, it was purposely stated that face coverings would be acceptable, meaning face shields instead of face masks. We have purchased 1,500 shields in our district. Fortunately, we got them at a great bargain, but still, we've got 1,500 face shields that now, as of last Wednesday, we were told those are no longer allowable in replacing in the place of face masks. So the next question asks, will we be recognizing medical waivers for masks for students who have letters from physicians? There are many school districts right now that are not accepting medical waivers. We believe that if a child has a medical waiver signed by a doctor, we will honor those waivers. I'm tying those two together because if a student can't wear a face mask and has a medical waiver, we would be very happy to provide them with a very comfortable face shield that they might want to wear in place of a face mask, so they don't feel like they're the only ones maybe in a classroom without a face mask, but it gives them some protection as well. And so we'll make those available to students if they have the medical waiver to not have a regular face mask. You just have to contact Dr. Graham, let him know, and we'll make those, he'll have those available at the high school. Is there a cap on the number of students in classes? Nothing was online about 6 foot distance for students.
Yeah, we do not have, we've got our traditional caps that we have in our classroom. We always strive to keep our numbers as low as we can. But we do know we'll have some classes that could have 30 students in it. And so we talked to our staff this last week. We are taking any unnecessary furniture, equipment out of the classrooms and working to spread our desk out as much as we can. But we know that we will not be at 6 feet at every point in their day. So that's, again, the importance of having the mask on when you're in the school.
Yeah, and actually, if you've been following the CDC guidelines on a weekly basis, like I have, a few weeks ago, the CDC was saying, well, maybe 3 foot is acceptable. And now they're coming out, maybe it needs to be 9 feet. So I'm not sure where the 6 foot social distancing started or came from, but there's a lot of vacillating opinions on that social distancing. If we had to provide 6 foot social distancing just based on the numbers in all of our buildings, we would have had to go on to a model that says you can come 2 days a week, half the students, the other half 2 days a week. And based on our parent survey results from June, that wasn't something that we saw our parents were desirous of seeing happen. So we're going to do the very best we can. As Dr. Graham said, we're asking the teachers to take all of their soft furniture and things that make their classrooms kind of homey for everybody, but those all have to go so we can space everybody out as much as possible. Plus, with those choosing extended traditional, it's lowering our class sizes district-wide, so that will help as well. The buses will run on Fridays. I think this next question might be intended maybe toward me. Who will be teaching on Zoom with the students that are in extended traditional? Because I probably don't want Mr. Timbrink teaching one of their classes on Zoom, huh? Who's going to be teaching those extended traditional classes?
Our classroom teachers will be teaching that. So those will be running simultaneously again. So while the teacher is in their classroom giving the direct instruction, students will be viewing that in direct instruction from home. So Jenison High School teachers will be teaching those. They will be using Google Meets. So our platform that we're using is Google Classrooms, and at the landing page of all Google Classrooms, there's an icon to join a meet, and it's very similar to a Zoom. And so when the teacher starts the class, they'll turn that on, and so the student that's home will push that link, and then the video will pop up.
So this one says, what schedule will Friday follow when it's a 4-day week? We've already kind of addressed this. Friday doesn't exist in a 4-day week. And so if, for instance, you're off on Monday, it will be 1, 2, 3 on Tuesday, 2, 4, 6 on Wednesday, 1, 2, 3 on Thursday, 2, 4, 6 on Friday. And so it's just alternating days on your 4-day weeks whenever that day off occurs. Has JPS considered testing all staff prior to the school year to have a baseline? No, we haven't considered that because testing is not that available right now where we would be able to access testing for every staff member, every employee. We have over 500 employees at Genesee Public Schools, so they haven't created enough tests yet for us to be able to say, hey, everybody just get tested. Certainly our employees know that if they have any symptoms that could be COVID related, they are to contact their medical personnel, their medical doctors, and to get themselves tested. And so, you know, well, if we tested every employee, we'd have to do it the first 3 days before the start of the school year anyway, because by the time you get the test back, things could change. So will online learning option lack the opportunity to receive individual support, extra help on a certain topic, and how will that be managed if so?
Yeah, I think to be clear, I think the extended traditional will be more of an independent learning environment. That being said, there'll be the students that are learning from home will get the direct instruction, will have the opportunity to engage with the teacher through the Google Classroom. So there will be support, but when you look at it as a whole, the students that are taking that extended traditional are going to need to be more of self-directed than potentially the students that are sitting in the classroom.
All right, and we have about 15 minutes left in this town hall session, so I'm gonna skip by some questions that we've already asked and answered. So if your question doesn't get answered, please go back and maybe rewatch this video if you jumped on late, the recording. Let's see, how will online learning look like if the schedule, oh, I already did that. Oh, here it is, the physical textbooks or online PDF versions.
Yep, for the extended learner, we would provide opportunity to pick up materials that you need. And so if there's a textbook that's utilized for that class, we would have a pickup spot for you to grab the materials that you're going to need at home.
Will computers be provided for all students who opt for the fully online JIA? Yes, that is a part of the JIA programming. Students get a computer provided by Jenison International Academy. This is a very good question because it says the ratio of staff students on Friday, will there always be at least 3 people present to protect the student and staff member? That is absolutely something that we need to be conscious of. Thank you for asking that question. We're never going to put a staff member in a position or a student in a position where they're one-on-one in that environment. So thank you for asking that question. When will they know if kids have 0 hour if they signed up for one?
That'll be during our orientation days. They'll get the schedules that have been assigned to them.
Will all learning options include an equal amount of graded assessments? the fully online JIA is going to differ in that that is a Jenison curriculum created within a fully online JIA approach. So the assessments won't be the same as they would be in extended traditional and traditional. My understanding is extended traditional and traditional assignments will be the same.
Correct.
Correct. If the plan details state very restricted opportunities will be allowed to transition back to the traditional classroom. If a student wanted to change their educational plan, when might that not be approved? I would just simply say, we can't have you switching every week. If you're, into the 4th week and you've already wanted to switch 2 or 3 times, that doesn't work for us. So that's what we're talking about. You just can't switch in and out all the time. There could be extenuating circumstances, and we'll always take that into account. But we have to put staffing in place, technology in place, and when we do that, if we get it all set up, ready to go, and in the first week, we got 20 people that want to switch back, that creates a problem for us. Excuse me. What's the best computer to purchase for students to bring to school?
Right now, our tech director is not making a recommendation, but I would say that what we use here is a Chromebook. They're usually the most economical if you're looking to purchase one for your family. So again, I don't know the availability at the box stores right now. I know the online is pretty backed up, but we use Chromebooks here in the school, and those have many different brands. Can you hear Mr. Tembrink at this time? Mr. Tembrink, I
I got it now.
There you go.
All right, sorry about that. If a student wants to be in the tech center, can they do the extended traditional model?
Yes, we'll work with you on that. Yep.
Is there a cost for JIA classes?
No.
No. Let's see, I'm trying to skip through ones. Do extended learning students who drive still need to purchase a parking pass? Yes.
Yep. Some of that's a security thing as well, knowing who's in and out of the building.
Orientation, Dr. Graham will be notifying all freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors as to when your orientation will take place. If that time doesn't work, they'll work with you to get an orientation in. Will learning online this year negatively or positively impact a student in the future?
I think, that really will go down to what students make of this opportunity. And I know that it's going to be different. And so I've challenged our kids. I've challenged my own kids that you've got to find the positive in some of these challenges. Our teachers, I want to compliment the work that they've done this summer. This hasn't been a regular summer for our teaching staff either. They've worked extremely hard, learning best practices in online, building online classes. So I think you're going to be impressed from a community standpoint at what your students are going to get from our teaching staff. We are trying to uphold the Jenison standard of what's going to be delivered to your kids in the fall.
So cleaning, disinfecting procedures for classrooms during passing times, if teachers doing that task, who's monitoring the hallways, outside passages? Again, that's something that we do have a lot of people at Jenison High School who are not teachers that will be out in the hallways and outside helping to monitor students as well. And some teachers can get, again, you got teachers on prep that don't have to clean their tables. So I think there'll be plenty of supervision out there. This one, will we be able to reach someone for additional questions after the meeting by the deadline, and how, if so, what would you ask, Dr. Graham?
Yeah, I would say if you have questions that don't get answers, please email us. Please email me directly from the high school.
The online learning programs at the elementary is going to be Blackboard. Some teachers at the high school also be using Blackboard, but for the most part, I believe the high school classroom teachers are using Google Classroom.
Correct.
is anything being done so kids can hear teachers better as they're wearing masks? Fortunately, all of our classrooms are equipped with a microphone that they can wear around their neck and come through the ceiling. It's an up-to-date audio system that we were able to put in with one of our bond issues. So that's going to benefit our teachers and students because it is difficult to project your voice all day through a mask. So that'll be able to be activated that way. DECA activities going to be available this fall, Dr. Graham.
That we're still waiting to hear from our parent organization that runs that. And so it depends on if they offer it. If they don't, we're going to continue to still have our business opportunities. We have our 2 school-based enterprises here at school, which is the Cat's Corner and the Green Bean, which is our coffee shop. And I was talking to Mrs. Malone the other day, and we're going to treat this like they are running a business that's going through COVID. And so they're going to have to put together plans on how they're going to take care of their customers. So we will have those business opportunities. The DECA question is really going to be if the national organization ends up running that this year.
All right, I'm going to go in the lightning round here and see if I can just get through a lot of these questions really quick. What happens if snow day occurs? Will kids have class? We always say if you're a virtual learner, there's no such thing as a snow day. However, we do know that there's always that, everybody needs to have a snow day approach. So, we're going to have our traditional students, but there's always going to be work that students can do in a traditional model or in our extended traditional, or fortunately also with JIA. No, JHS does not have COVID-19 testing available on site because, again, it's limited and they don't give us access to that. But Ottawa County Health Department will certainly be ready and available to assist us in that. What training have teachers received on Google Meet? Will students be able to see the whiteboard? We already said yes, they'll be able to see the whiteboard, and our Google Meet teachers in that Google Meet platform actually went through some extensive training over the last 2 days. And so they're getting much more familiar with it. And some of our people that have been teaching in an online mode for 10 years have been providing some of that instruction. So we're blessed to have JIA in our district and be able to have them, lean on them for telling us what's the best way to teach students online. Yes, every student is going to get a water bottle from Jenison Public Schools, and our water fountains are not going to be allowed to be on, but we are we're installing water fill machines in all of our school buildings around the district. Will SAT tests be offered? Yes, if we can be in person. At this point, we don't know how that could virtually be done, but the state right now is committed to having the SAT tests for the seniors for sure that missed it, right? And I think potentially for this year's juniors, yep, if we're in person. Well, enough for me to connect, extend traditional students with other external students. Oh, how are we going to try to extend a social gathering, so to speak, of extended traditional students? Again, that's going to be something that as parents, you're going to have to work on in creating those social environments for students. If you're in the JIA is, so they create those environments to create social environment for those kids. And the last one, and we're going to have to close this up, people are asking, what is the trend right now with the parent responses and the intent form? We're at about 85, 86% with about almost 1,900 responses in of parents wanting to choose the traditional model, and about 9% of the extended traditional. And then I think about 2% with JI at this point, maybe it's a little higher than that. So that's where we're at, and that's district wide. I think the high school is maybe about 3-4% with the extended traditional model within that 9%. But that was as of earlier this afternoon. So that gives you at least a feel for what parents are choosing. I fully expect we're gonna have 85 to 87% of all of our students returning to a traditional model. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you have specific questions you absolutely have to have answered, please reach out to Dr. Graham and he will get you your answers by tomorrow afternoon. We are going to go through all of these and put together a frequently asked question document by the end of next week, so we can answer many more of these questions that maybe don't impact your decision, but certainly questions that are still in your mind. Okay, I hope this has been valuable for you. We've appreciated the time, although we haven't been able to see your faces or interact. Thanks for struggling through with some of the technology issues we've had. Appreciate so much. And again, we are excited to get our kids back, whether it be in the building or virtually, because we've missed them, and that's our inspiration. And so we need them back here to energize us. So thank you again, parents, and thanks again for your support in our bond proposal as well. Have a good night, and we're signing off.
Thank you.